Hi everyone, welcome to this lightning class on AI fluency for legal professionals. My name is Mariam Salahijam. I'll be your instructor today. My background is in legal education and legal tech. I have a PhD in alternative dispute resolution within the commercial space, so business disputes, and I'm currently the Chief Revenue Officer here at Junior, which is a legal tech company focused on drafting tools for legal professionals. We're based here in the US. I'm physically based in San Diego, California. I'm just admitting a few folks before I get started here. Hi from Romania, Europe. Yes, I love that. Giannina, great name. Let me know where you guys are joining from. I'm just going to admit people for the next minute and then I'll get right into it. Here we go. OC, California. Oh, hi, Brooke. I know who you are. Nice to see you on here.
Hi, nice to see you.
Hi, Brooks. We should do a clock event down here.
We should.
Yes. Okay. Admit all. People are filtering in. Are you guys having a heat wave up there too?
Yes,
Oh
it's
my
very hot
gosh,
here.
it's so hot down here.
Yes.
All right, I think we can get started. I'll admit people as they join, and this will be recorded, so it's okay if people are joining late. We will have them watch the recording for the parts they've missed. All right, so today what I thought about focusing on for everyone is a really simple framework around AI for legal, which is the Legally framework. Legally stands for learn about AI, learn to evaluate AI, know how to govern AI, apply AI to your productivity to get the most out of it, lead with confidence around AI adoption, know where to limit AI, and why for yield judgment. So easy to remember legally. So that's gonna be our outline today. So let's start with my favorite, which is learn. I love learning. This is basic concept here, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. When we say AI in this presentation, we're talking about generative AI. There's a difference between regular AI and generative AI. When we used to talk about AI 3 years ago, we mostly talked about systems that were performing tasks similar like a human, right? That was relativity, LexisNexis, Everlaw, Disco. We use them in e-discovery, in OCRing documents, in specialized tools. But today, a lot of the legal tech out there is generative AI. So it's models that are generating new content. They're not just pulling up something based on a search, right? Or answering a question. They're actually generating a response. They're generating an image. They're generating a document. Generative AI models you probably have heard of is Claude, GPT in the legal space. Harvey is really famous. Lagora is kind of their Goliath, right? David and Goliath. And then Junior is my company, of course, shameless plug. So why do we need to focus on generative AI? Because generative AI functions really differently to regular AI. Generative AI is a predictive model. So the way it works, it tries to predict the next token. So let's say we're working on a contract and we're writing, the parties agree this clause is, and we ask it to finish. It's going to think about what's the most likely next word, which is in this case, binding, is the most preferable token. It's more of a pattern engine than a database. And it is very fluent, but it's not always correct. And I'm going to come back to this concept of fluent versus correct. And there's no built-in sense of accuracy or truth, which is why we worry about hallucinations. And I will cover why AI has hallucinations. And because it's generative and because it's using tokens, the last concept that I really want us to focus on in the learn context is context windows themselves, which is funny. I used the word context twice. Apologies for that. So why does AI hallucinate? Hallucinations are not because AI is bad or generative AI is bad. It's just because of how it was built. The way these models are built, anytime there's missing information, they try to fill in the gap, which can create hallucinations. If your instructions are not very good, it can create hallucinations. And this I'll cover a little bit more about why prompting matters, why you might want a specific tool versus a generalized tool. And oftentimes we don't give it a grounding, we don't give it a framework, we don't tell it what to focus on, we just kind of let it loose, right? So it's just trying to figure it out, but it's like a very smart sounding idiot in that case, right? And the last reason AI hallucinates is that its retrieval failed. So it tried to look for something, couldn't find it, and just filled in the gap. How do we potentially fix this hallucination problem, right? What are some ways that people try to get around the hallucination problem? They try to get around it with retrieval. So without retrieval, the way these models work is you ask a question, for example, what is the privacy laws in California? And it does its best guess at telling you what the privacy laws in California are. It searched its memory, its kind of knowledge base, and it gives you a plausible answer. Whereas with retrieval, right, RAG, you're going to hear this word a lot as you talk to vendors. When you ask a question, the AI models are then pointed at a specific box of information to give you that answer. So that's whether you have a connector built in, whether it's via a specific tool you're using, right? It's not looking at its entire memory base, right? It's looking at a specific set of documents. So for example, in the M&A context, AI, generative AI is used heavily for diligence. It's because you can give it a pool of contracts. Let's say you give it 5,000 contracts and you say, look through these 5,000 contracts only and tell me the expiration terms, the confidentiality terms, all of that good stuff. That's why when you use retrieval, you tend to get a more accurate answer than if you're just asking a question to the model. So it's the same model, but retrieval gives you a more accurate answer. So before we talked about why does it hallucinate, this is one of the ways to get it to hallucinate less, which is a RAG model. Companies like Harvey, Legora, Udia, they all have RAG models. Anthropic itself also has a RAG model if you set it up right to do RAG. So it's a really important word to remember when you're looking at a large pool of documents or you want the model to only answer you on a large pool of documents. The next reason AI hallucinates, and I just want to show you guys why AI hallucinates, is that its context window is reached, right? So what is a context window? Context window is how much you can remember before you start forgetting. So me as a human, sometimes I read 20 pages, but I only remember two. It's kind of the same concept, but it's more mathematical than human memory. There's actual numbers around it. So the way AI works, your questions are the first thing it sees. The documents you paste or upload are the next thing it sees. The back and forth is also creating this tokens, right? And then when it answers you, it's also using tokens. So tokens are like the fuel. Its gas tank can run out of gas. So when you're using too many tokens in a conversation, it will start to hallucinate because it can't remember what has already been said because its context window is getting breached. So a lot of people, what they do, and I see this a lot, is they start a chat and they never start a new chat, right? They never start a new window. That is kind of guaranteed to create hallucinations and wrong answers. So what are the common token windows or context windows of these models? Between Anthropic, OpenAI, and Gemini, you're looking at anywhere between 200,000 tokens and 1,000,000 tokens. Now, how do you know how many tokens might a project cost? It is a math, it's a rough math, but you can assume about 1,000 tokens is about 1.5 pages of Word. So in legal, where we're very text heavy, you will probably crash context windows faster than other workflows or other professionals. So again, why does AI hallucinate? It's looking at too much, it doesn't have the right parameters, you're not telling it where to look, or you're overloading its memory. Another example of how people overload AI's memory, they go, well, I'm going to give it 50 previous work products of mine, whether they're contracts or memos or whatever, and I'm going to try to have it learn from those. While that's a creative idea, you will be crashing the context window, and the next question you ask, it will be hallucinating. Okay. So now that context windows are covered and the concept of RAG versus memory is covered, let's talk about prompts versus agents, because this is another way for you to protect the context window and reduce hallucinations. Because right now within legal, our biggest risk is hallucinations. So how do we get around it? This is kind of the third strategy. Prompts, it's the word we've all heard. Prompts are instructions to the model. You ask, it answers. So it's a single set of instructions or it's a back and forth. It's a conversation you're having. So an example is, hey, look at this contract. Tell me what's the indemnification provision. It looks at the contract, it answers you, and then it's done, right? That's a prompt. An agent is more mimicking kind of how a human would interact with a document or a set of instructions. You give it a goal and then it starts acting. So, for example, at our company, Junior, when we're reviewing a patent for accuracy using our system, it's going to perform multiple checks and it's trained to stop, ask for your input, and keep going without you telling it to keep going. So it has a plan it's going to execute. Now, agents are amazing. I highly recommend you play around with them. Or if you have a legal system, play around with agents because agents are going to be able to break up a complex legal task into its kind of silos, right? Perform that, reset themselves, and perform the next task so that, again, the context window is protected. If you don't know how to build an agent, you can just ask OpenAI or Claude itself on how to do it, and they'll give you the instructions. So it's not something you need to learn from a presentation like mine. You can literally have the AI teach you how to build an agent. Some of the agents I use, I have one within Claude that scans my emails and flags for me the emails that I need to answer, and then it drafts the email. Let me just admit another person who's joining. All right. Still in Learn, I want to also tell you about tools versus connectors in the AI space, because this is also really important. And this goes back to accuracy, hallucinations, and all of that good stuff. So what a tool is, it's anything the models can do beyond writing text. So when GPT first came out, it could just answer your questions. It didn't really do much else. But right now, if you open GPT or Anthropic, you can see it has deep research. You can upload documents. You can run calculations. Like I mentioned, it can connect to my email and send an email for me. So it's a tool, right? It's what the model can use to then take further action. Tools are very powerful. I highly recommend you try them. Connectors are kind of a link between an AI and an app we might have. So LexisNexis has kind of an API or a connector into these models. So does Thomson Reuters, so does Junior, so does Harvey, so does Lagora. So it's kind of this connector between the model and this framework, right? So it's more niche, it's more focused. Within this concept of tools versus connectors comes another word we have to know when we're using AI, which is APIs. APIs, you can think of them like a pipe, right? Between your system, your firm, your legal team, and then the AI model, right? Now, APIs are really, really, really important within legal because of confidentiality, privilege, training, like security, and I'll come back to this. But it's really important to always know whether what you're using is APIing into these models or not. So in plain English, it's an application program interface, but you can think of it like a pipe. It's how the information is being communicated. And APIs are, again, very important to security. I'm going to come back to it as to why they're important to security. And then the thing that about APIs that's important, right? It's my system, the request, the AI model is processors and subprocessors. Again, we're on the learn stage of legally. So I'm giving you a lot of definitions before I go into how they all fit together. So I am the lawyer. I have a question. Let's say I'm asking my question to Thomson Reuters and saying, what case tells me about liability in California when it comes to slip and falls, right? And that AI vendor, the processor, Thomson, is then going to take my question, run it in its own cloud. So that's the processing, right? And then to the model, and then send it back. So when we're APIing, a lot of the information you're sending is actually hosted in your vendor's cloud if you're using a legal vendor. Again, this is really important to security because if you're using confidential information, you want to make sure whatever system you're using is not training, has some sort of agreement with a good, reputable processor here, or not, I can't say here in the US, people are joining this call from the globe, but in your jurisdiction, right? The cloud is sitting in your jurisdiction, right? And then the API calls are also secure. So this is more infrastructural based. Now I'm going to go back to my first slide on the legally framework and tell you what's next. So we talked about learn, which is the fundamentals. We covered AI versus generative AI, how a LLM predicts the next token, why LLMs hallucinate, how you can get them to hallucinate less via retrieval, context windows, agents, connectors, and API calls. Next, I want to talk about evaluation, and I hope all the definitions carry over to evaluation. So, how do you actually evaluate what's right for you? You have general AI, like Anthropic, OpenAI, and Google, and you have legal specific AI. Let's start with the general stuff. Anthropic has a safety first position, which is why a lot of legal vendors will API call into Anthropic to get you your answers. OpenAI is what has the most street cred within the general population. It's very user friendly, easy to use, but it's also used by a lot of legal tech vendors, but it doesn't necessarily push its safety as its core functionality. And then Google Gemini, I call it my cowboy. It's coming into the space. It's very exciting. It's if you run a Google suite, if you're at a startup, it's all there. It's very capable, but it's a little rowdy. You're not really sure how it's going to answer you because it's still they're kind of fine tuning Google Gemini. I love it. I use it on a lot of my Google Sheets, but it is very rowdy, I would say. So when we talk about safety within AI, right? People think, oh, I'm using Anthropic, it must be safe. No, or I'm using OpenAI, it must be safe. No. Safety really comes down to what version of these models are you using? So let's talk about a really safe version, which is API calls. Why? Because API calls retention is reduced, training is reduced, encryption is increased. Whereas the free version, when I just open Gemini and I'm not paying for it, I open OpenAI, I'm not paying for it, it is not safe. It's public, they can retain your data. You can turn off training, but they can retain your data, and they don't really have any obligations to you other than basic privacy laws because, again, you're using their product for free. Even when you do pay for their product, it doesn't mean they're not retaining your data or training on your data unless you physically turn it off. And the only time they're not retaining your data is business tiers or API tiers. So a lot of lawyers, I get very, very nervous because they're like, oh, I bought a subscription to Claude and I'm at a law firm and I'm going to just use it for everything. I'm like, first of all, no. The data pools are not segregated. There is retention of your data. It is not actually a legally safe way to use AI. Now, any legal tech vendor that is reputable will have an API connector, its own cloud provider, and segregation of data pools. So it's a lot safer. So forget about whether you can do something Harvey, Lagora, or Junior does on your own. You have to ask if doing it on my own is safe. Because maybe you'll say it's giving me the same answer. Why do I need a specific tool? Again, it goes back to data safety, security, confidentiality, and privilege. So what are the 5 questions we have to ask any AI vendor, whether it's Anthropic or a legal tech specific tool? First is, where's the answer coming from? This goes back to, what did we point the AI at? Did we just ask the universe, or did we point it to a specific pool of data? Second is, how do you handle hallucinations, right? It won't is not the right answer. It will hallucinate. AI will hallucinate. That is a certainty. It's more so, how do we try to reduce the hallucination or flag it? The third is, where's my data going? Where is it being stored? How long is it being stored, right? Is it being used to train? And then the fourth question, this is really important, right? Is, can you do the demo on my documents, right? Or can I have a pilot? Can I demo this? Can I actually try it to see that it's working? And the fifth question, this is the one where, oh my God, there's so much fake marketing out there about benchmarks. It's like, you can't do your own benchmark as a company. That's bullshit. But it's about, how are you measuring your accuracy? Like, I don't want to hear a vendor say, oh my God, we benchmarked ourselves and we're the best. That's just false marketing. I don't want to hear it. It's more so, was there a third party? Is there a third party right now? Not anything reputable, but what are your colleagues saying? You know, don't trust just whatever the vendor is telling you. They're of course going to overpromise and under deliver. Now, on confidentiality, this goes back to governing AI legally, the G part of legally. How do you know it's confidential? First is training, of course, really important. We talked about that. Second is retention. I already covered that. Privilege and duty, right? What is the privilege like? Can they expose your data if required? What do they see on their end? And then who can see the data? Is it just a vendor? Is it their sub-processors, their vendors, their contractors? You really want to know that, like, let's say I upload a contract into a system. On the back end, can they see my contract? Yes or no? And the ones that are properly encrypting things, they cannot see the contract, even though I've uploaded it to their system. So it's really important to ask, like, okay, if I upload a document, can you see the document on your end? And the answer has to be no, we cannot see it unless you give us an encryption key, because the encryption is really, really important in this context. Now, proof not promises, again, encryption, super important. Ask about it. Try to learn more about encryption, very important word in the AI context. Independent certificates of security, SOC 2, ISO, very important. Data residency I covered. Where is it being stored? What cloud? What location? And what kind of cloud? Is it a cloud that's reputable like AWS and Google, or is it some random provider? And then what contracts are binding them, right? Is it GDPR? Is it a DPA? Is it CCPA? Is it BAA? Again, it's really important to make sure the privacy models are there as well. And then again, same model, different tier, different exposure, choose wisely. Don't poison M&A agreement into a free chatbot. That is not a safe way of using AI. Do get an enterprise subscription, get a DPA, or get a legal tech tool that's very secure, safe, and reputable, even if they're going to give you the same answer. Because it's not about the destination, it's about how you get there. So maybe I can get to my destination on a car that's just two wheels with no airbags, or I can go in a safe car and make sure I get there safely. All right, I didn't mean to scroll forward so much. Okay, now let's apply everything we've learned to legal. So where are legal professionals actually saving time? How much time are they saving? Right now, it's roughly between 5 and 15 hours a week. It's nothing crazy. The AI is not replacing you. And the time saved is often reported in terms of summarization, first draft, not final draft, right? Comparing documents, basic research, not analytical research, drafting from templates, translation, plain language. Again, these are not really complex legal tasks. It's more so legal tasks that most folks that are entering the legal profession within their first 1 to 5 years can perform for us, and we trust them to do it. And it's the same with AI. We're not going to give AI general counsel level work, chief legal officer level work, partner level work. We might have it do elements of it, but we're not going to have it produce the final product, because that is just not where AI is showing its strengths at the moment. Now, lead. How do we get people to adopt AI? If we found those 5 to 15 hours, how do we get other people to trust us, right? How do we make the call? First is use it, show the use cases, then sit down with people, show them how it works for you, show them how simple it is, and always start with the security statement first, like, hey, I know how things are secure because API connectors, encryption, data pools, GDPR, this is secure. So security put aside. Now let me show you the use case. Let me show you where it actually helped me. Now, even within that, right, we still need to limit AI. So it's not just about security limiting or confidentiality limiting or privacy limiting. It's about use cases that are safe for AI. Remember how I talked about you don't want to give it too complex of a work? So you don't want to have it run legal research for a very important case in an appellate court without verification, without you running your own search, right? You want to treat it kind of as a third party also running a search, and you're just curious what it's going to find versus you, and you're going to verify all its sources. You should kind of always assume AI is lying to you. Is it, if it's confidential, right? Don't put it in a public tool. Again, that one is obvious. I mentioned it. The advice it's giving you, it's not based on any sort of retrieval. It's just like guessing. It's just guessing what it says, but it can't cite the source. So you want to ask it to cite the source, and then you want to click it and actually read the source. And you don't want to trust the work product without any human review. That is risky business. We don't really ever want to do that. So you have to be very, very careful with the limits you put on AI, from security to verification. Now, how do we yield judgment when we're using AI? This is the Y part of legally. You want to spot the risk before it reaches a court, your counterparty, or your client. So check, make sure, especially with case names, quotes, what it says the document says, stats, dates, dollar figures, answers about laws, interpretation of laws, very high risk areas to trust AI. So those are the high risk areas. It's really important we double check those areas because it can make mistakes and those mistakes can be disastrous. And I always recommend you run a check. You ask yourself, did I ground it? Did I point it at something? Did I give it a pool? Did I give it a bucket? Can I verify it? So again, can I click on the citation? Can I read it? Can I open the document? Can I find it on my own? And then last but not least, would you sign your name on it, right? Because at the end of the day, this presentation was brought to you by Claude Design, of course, but I read every page. I told it what the pages should say. I double read it. Then I uploaded it to OpenAI. I asked it to check Claude's work. Then I uploaded it back to Claude, right? Would I put my name on it? And in this case, I would put my name on it. So if you remember anything from this call, there's 5 things. Fluent is not correct. Just because it sounds smart doesn't mean it is smart. It's just a really smart sounding idiot. Mind context windows, again, it can only remember so much before it starts hallucinating and making things up or forgetting things completely. Safety is the tier of the model you're using, not the brand itself. So it's not about, oh, I'm using Anthropic, it's safe, but it's about what tier, what subscription model am I using? Always verify your sources no matter what. And again, remember, your name is on that record. Your name is on the document. So I hope these all help you to adopt with confidence with the Legally AI framework. I do have another course on Maven that is a longer course. It's not just the lightning course. If you'd like to sign up for it, there is a discount code for everyone. I believe the discount code is 25% off, but if you need a larger discount code, just email me and I'll make sure to give you a better discount code because I don't want price to be a factor between people and legal education. Thank you all for your time and I wish you have a great Wednesday.